Well, the DJI ban is officially here, and it's way, way worse than I think anyone expected. But before we get to the bad news, the good news is that it's officially confirmed that whatever drones you already have are going to keep working just fine. They're going to still be legal to use, and at least as of right now, there aren't going to be any import restrictions on already certified drones. If we look at the fact sheet that the FCC put out, it specifically says here, as specified below, today's decisions do not impact a consumer's ability to continue using drones previously purchased or acquired. Nor does today's decision prevent retailers from continuing to sell, import, or market device models already approved earlier this year or previously through the FCC's equipment authorization process. The restrictions imposed by today's decision apply only to new device models. And further down at the bottom it says this action does not affect any previously purchased drone. Consumers can continue to use any drone that they have already lawfully purchased or acquired. And from DJI's side, they are also confirming that your drones will keep working. They've said today's developments will not affect consumers who already own DJI products. These existing products can continue to be purchased and operated as usual. So your current drones are fine, but that is where the good news ends, and ends big time. So if you've been living under a rock, originally this ban was just going to apply to DJI drones and Autel drones as well, and that was it. But that just majorly changed. Here in their fact sheet it says, yesterday, following a thorough review by an interagency body, etc., the FCC received a specific determination that UAS and critical component parts, not just the drones, also parts, that are produced in foreign countries, not just China, any foreign country, pose unacceptable security risks to national security, blah, 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 and should be included on the FCC's covered list unless the Department of War or Department of Homeland Security make a specific determination to the FCC that a given UAS class of UAS, unmanned aerial systems, what UAS means, or UAS critical components does not pose such risks. And if we look at their public notice, you can see that in fact, uncrewed aerial systems and UAS critical components produced in foreign countries and all communications and surveillance equipment and services from the NDAA are all added to the FCC covered list. So what does that practically mean? Well, first of all, it's not just DJI that is having new products banned from being used in the US. This prohibits any new drone made in any country besides the US, not just China, from getting FCC authorizations. And it even applies to any drones that are made in the US that use any foreign components, which is basically all of them. I think it's hard to grasp just how broad the term UAS, unmanned aerial systems, is. This covers any kind of drone, any kind of RC helicopter, any kind of RC plane, even toy RC stuff. Technically, they all fall under the unmanned aerial systems definition. Basically, anything that flies and doesn't have a pilot and is made outside of the US is now on the covered list, which in my opinion is absolutely wild and way different than what we were expecting. And I also think the whole national security risk justification is also basically nonsense. I've talked about this before, but out of all the smart devices that we use that are basically all made in China and all use Chinese components, drones probably pose the least security risk because a drone is most of the time turned off, not able to be remotely started. It's not like these drones are just going to go out and fly away on their own and hit some high-risk infrastructure. It's just not how it works. From everything that I can tell, allegedly, please don't sue me, it seems like all of this is basically just lobbying from certain American drone companies to eliminate competition. Anyway, all that aside, not only the drones are being banned, but apparently also the components. Now, guys, even if we can't get new drones into the US, we can still get drones that have already been registered, and you can still get amazing shots with these drones. So if you want to start working on getting better shots with your drone, I've put together a completely free 45-minute drone filmmaking training where I share my top 10 secrets to getting cinematic shots with any drone, covering the best settings to use, how to compose your shots, how to get smooth dynamic movements, how to edit your videos, how to color grade them, and a whole bunch more. This stuff is going to apply no matter what drone you have or what drone you can get in the future, so it's time to start building those skills. Go down, click the link below this video, and watch that. Again, it's completely free, no strings attached. Now back to the DJI Ban news. Here on the covered list are not only all UAS, but UAS critical components. Now you might ask, what are considered critical components? Well, they answer that question down here at the bottom of this public notice. The term UAS critical components includes, but is not limited to, the following UAS components and any associated software. Data transmission devices, so this is any kind of video transmitters. This was kind of expected. Communication systems, any kind of radios that will control the drones. Flight controllers, even flight controllers, new flight controllers are banned. Ground control stations and UAS controllers, so no new remotes from China. This could majorly impact FPV because you can't get new ELRS remotes, for example, to fly FPV drones. Navigation systems, new GPS units for drones. Sensors and cameras, even cameras specifically designed for drones, would be banned. Batteries and battery management systems, and even motors. Now, some of these things wouldn't require FCC authorization or registration on their own, like for example, batteries. If you just take a straight LiPo battery, there's no real electronics inside that. There's nothing to be registered with the FCC. And same thing with motors. They're just basic electrical devices. Again, no FCC registration for those. But it seems like the way that this would be enforced is that any drones that include these components from any foreign country would be banned. Now, the crazy thing about this is that we basically don't make any of this stuff here in the US. We don't have major LiPo factories, especially not for the kind that are used in drones. We don't have drone motor factories, again, at least for the kind in consumer drones. Most of this stuff just simply isn't made in the US at all, which could be even a problem for American drone manufacturers because even currently, companies like even Skydio themselves, who are allegedly the root of all this problem, they've had supply chain issues because their batteries were coming from China, and China imposed some kind of export restrictions on those, and it messed up their supply chain. And you can only imagine how many other components they're using that aren't made in the US. Now, there is a provision in this whole thing for exceptions to be made by the Department of War or Department of Homeland Security. They can make a specific determination to the FCC that a given UAS, so that would be a specific drone like this, or a class of UAS, so they could say all drones under 250 grams, or a UAS critical component, like they could say we're going to let batteries into the US, does not pose such risks and therefore wouldn't be included on the covered list. Now, how this ability to make exceptions will be used, I have no idea. I'm sure that at least some exceptions are going to be coming because otherwise it would basically put even the drone makers that have been kind of behind all of this, again allegedly, basically out of business because I don't think they have US sources for all of those parts at this point. So some limited exceptions I would think have to be coming. Now, there's also a chance that they give some kind of a more broad exception, like for example, say all drones under 250 grams or under 5 pounds or something like that that aren't DJI are going to be allowed to come into the US. And on one hand, it almost seems likely that they would do something like that because the current rules would ban everything from toy RC aircraft, at least as far as I understand it, on up to any type of drone, basically. But at the same time, I feel like if they were intending to do that, they would have probably issued that ruling from the Department of Homeland Security or whoever immediately, because that would minimize a lot of confusion, but they have not done that, so we really don't know if we are getting any kind of exceptions or not. But whatever the case, the fact that they have structured it in such a way that everything is added to the covered list, and the only way to get off is at the whim and whimsy of some government agencies, is not looking good. So what this means practically as drone pilots is that no drone company is coming to save things for a long time. Initially, I think a lot of us were hoping that some company like Insta360 or some new startup or some company that's kind of copying what DJI is doing, maybe not technically a shell company, but doing a lot of the same things, would come along and keep providing some quite decent drones, even if it did take them a while to catch up to what DJI is doing. But looks like that is no longer the case, unless something majorly changes from what they have released and they give some sweeping exclusions from the covered list. It looks like none of those companies, not Insta360, not Hover Air, not Potensic, not Skyrover, none of these companies will be able to launch new drone models in the US. And even looking over on the FPV side of things, it doesn't look very good there as well, because no new components that require FCC registration will be allowed to be used from any country besides the US. That means no new digital transmission systems that might be able to replace DJI, not even any new ELRS or TBS remotes or control receivers for the drones, presumably not even new GPS units. I'm not sure if they need FCC authorization or not, but if they do, they wouldn't be allowed. I'm not sure about flight controllers, if they need FCC authorization or not. But anything that does need FCC authorization, you won't be able to get any new products here in the US unless they decide to make some kind of an exception for them. And I'm not sure how that will affect pre-built FPV drones, because most of these aren't getting their own FCC authorization. It's just the authorization for the components inside. So they might still just be able to keep using old components, although I'm not really sure how all that is going to shake out at this point. So yeah, that's where we're at. To me, it seems like this has got to be one of the most ridiculous things I've seen in a long time. I hate to put it that bluntly, but it's basically just destroying the entire drone sector in one fell swoop, which is not ideal, put it that way. And as drone pilots, we are going to have to, I guess, wait and see what this exactly means, if we're going to get any exclusions from the covered list, any exceptions or exemptions. But at this point, I'm not particularly hopeful, given that they have taken the directive that was quite defined as relating to DJI and Autel and expanded it out to any foreign-made drone. I honestly have a hard time believing they even did that, because that casts such a broad net. Basically, any flying thing that doesn't have a pilot in it that's made anywhere, if it's made in Canada, if it's made in Europe, if it's made in Japan, if it's made in South Korea, Vietnam, anywhere, it can't get an FCC authorization unless it gets a case-by-case exception to be able to be authorized. So yeah, we may be cooked as drone pilots. I don't know where this is going exactly, but I will keep you guys updated if I find out anything else. If you found this video valuable and appreciated getting the actual information directly from the real sources, you can go right down below this video and hit the subscribe button. And yeah, I'll see you in the next video.